I'm Mike. I have a separate hook in my garage where I hang my golf clubs, designed just for them. Golf is my personal salvation, a way to enjoy solitude. Although I sometimes play with my business colleagues, on Sundays I prefer to play alone. I choose a field that I haven't visited for a long time and order tee time. Despite my hopes for singles, I often play in pairs with other golfers. If I don't get to know other players, I can focus on my game and really enjoy golf. This is the aspect of this sport that I appreciate the most. Although I may not be the most skilled golfer, I usually finish the game with a score about 11 points above par. My strong point is the short game, as I rarely miss the second green. But my shots can be both successful and misses, and this creates problems for me on the field. Some weeks my golf ball hits the right spot without difficulty, while others I struggle with sand traps all day. Golfer friends, I'm sure you understand me. After an unsuccessful round, I went from the garage to the kitchen to wash the dishes and drink a beer. At that moment, I heard the voice of my wife, who was chatting with someone on the phone through the wide-open kitchen window. Last summer, we had a swimming pool installed in our backyard, and my wife just loved it. On scorching days, she could often be caught taking a refreshing swim to cool off. We were relaxing by the pool, basking in the sun or relaxing under the cool shade of the trees. I loved watching her in those moments when she was wearing the most revealing bikinis. The temptation to throw off those little bikinis and indulge in passion right there on the pool deck was irresistible. But the conversation I heard through the window made me stop where I was, activating all my senses as much as possible. Oh yes, we'll need to wear tight bikinis, just like the ones we wore during spring break in college. Do you remember how the guys looked at us back then? Ha ha. Of course it will be fun to tease our men and laugh at them. Perhaps some of them will even be embarrassed because they were on vacation and they will have to hide in the water until their excitement subsides. Then we'll find out who has what size. Giggling, she added, "It's going to be very funny, I'm sure." She was enthusiastically discussing the phone conversation. What? Yes, I know I can be a troublemaker, but we girls are going to have so much fun. Oh my God, this is going to be so great. Haha, I'm already imagining it. Which one of them do you think should do it? To my husband? Well, he's definitely not going to be thrilled, but just thinking about it makes me burst. Okay, I agree. Well, I have to go. Mike will be back from playing golf soon, and we plan to cook something at the barbecue. Yes, it's good. After a long work week and household chores on Saturdays, Mike enjoys playing golf on Sundays, and I prefer to relax by the pool. Sunday evenings are my favorites, a soothing atmosphere and an opportunity to relax. I like to read, sunbathe, and just enjoy the moment. I can't wait for us all to meet. Bye-bye. My wife finished the conversation. I realized that I was unconsciously holding my breath, and I let out a long, slow exhale. What was she talking about? Whatever it was, it looked like she was up to something incredibly funny, and it seemed to be aimed at me. I had already imagined myself the object of a joke, and now I want to remember my past childhood. Lisa and I have been married for 6 years. We met in college, and I won't go into the details of how we ended up together. I'll just note that I pursued her for 3 years in college before we tied the knot a month before graduation. After the wedding, we moved into a small 2-room apartment outside the college, which was the envy of our friends. Our love for each other was undeniable, and it continues to this day. Over time, our college friends paired up one by one and got married a year or 2 after graduating from college. Since Lisa and I got married before anyone else, in our peer group, we were considered experienced veterans when it came to marriage. Lisa's friends, along with their husbands, decided to refuse to participate in the reunion in honor of the 5th anniversary of graduation from college, and instead rented a cottage on the beach for the weekend. I thought it was a great idea because I didn't have many friends when I was a student. Between playing football to keep a sports scholarship and studying to get a double major in business and accounting, my free time was devoted exclusively to my girlfriend Lisa. Football, studying, and Lisa were all I concentrated on. Lisa, on the other hand, was getting a degree in psychology, and studying was not difficult for her. She always found time to chat with friends and constantly participated in various activities with her roommates. Even after we got married in senior year, her busy schedule remained the same. When I wasn't on the football field or in the gym, Lisa and I tried to be alone. It so happened that Lisa's 5 college friends, along with their husbands, were organizing a weekend trip that was supposed to take place in 2 weeks. They booked a spacious 6-bedroom house near the beach and planned a 3-day vacation for everyone. I knew all of Lisa's friends, and I had met 1 or 2 husbands before. Although the meeting was supposed to be a much-needed break from work for me, I realized that it would be even more enjoyable for Lisa, since most of the group members were her close friends. The plan for us husbands was simple: hang out, swim, roast delicious food, and drink some beer. But what does it mean to mention that girls in revealing bikinis will try to seduce us? What was their ultimate goal? Perhaps they wanted to relive their wild college days. I'm constantly trying to get out of awkward situations, and Lisa understood that perfectly well. Who wants to be in a difficult and awkward position in public? For example, I was more receptive than many others. During college, I shared with Lisa one humiliating incident from my childhood. My mother ran a kindergarten at home. I was constantly surrounded by 4 or 5 children, both girls and boys, some of them older and some younger than me. The oldest child was no more than 12 years old. At this time, my mother put me in an awkward position and compounded the punishment by publicly ripping off my pants and hitting my bare ass when I was guilty. She gave 3 or 4 hard slaps, not paying attention to who was watching. Often, when I hurriedly pulled on my pants after such an ordeal, I would pay attention to the girls who were staring at me intently. Some grinned, others shyly covered their mouths, trying not to burst out laughing. There were even those who shamelessly pointed and laughed out loud. I've only seen my mom 3 times since I left for college. During the summer holidays, I tried to find a job on campus so as not to return home. On other holidays, I always organized trips, for example, camping or skiing, so as not to stay at my parents' house. Can you really blame me? It wasn't that I hated my mother. It was just that I had no desire to ever be around her again. Naturally, I couldn't completely exclude communication with my mother, so I tried to answer her calls about once a month. She was always curious about how I was doing, and she was eager to find out all the details of my life. Lately, she has been constantly asking when I will please her with grandchildren. Since my father retired, she stopped taking care of the children at home and now expressed a desire to take care of her own grandchildren. In a serious tone, she made it clear to me that I should start working towards achieving this goal. But I couldn't imagine taking my future children to her house. Therefore, I skillfully changed the subject so as not to touch on this issue. I just smiled and nodded, not refusing directly, but also not taking on certain obligations. It was my way of dealing with the situation. I have a strong aversion to conflicts and always try to avoid them at all costs. When my wife and I argue, I usually keep quiet and give her the opportunity to express her thoughts. This is not necessarily because I agree with her, but rather because I find it pointless to endlessly argue or contradict her. Some may consider this a weakness on my part, but I think it's the most convenient way to move through life. I've never cared about the opinions of others. In addition, as a child, my mother committed many ugly and shameful acts that still haunt me. I hope you understand what I'm getting at. It hurt me a lot and made me overreact to situations in which I felt awkward or humiliated, especially in the presence of women. As I walked to the pool through the back door, my head was full of thoughts about what my wife had prepared for our weekend meeting. "Hi, honey," Lisa said happily, waving at me from her chaise longue. "How was your golf game?" Today I finished the round with a score of 5+, which is not bad at all. Despite the lack of a driver, it was a good round, I said dispassionately, trying to seem relaxed even though my mind was screaming at me to stay calm. "Who were you talking to on the phone?" I asked my wife. She hesitated for a moment before regaining her composure and replied, "I was just chatting with Angie, my former college roommate. We discussed our future meeting." "I see," I muttered, rubbing the back of my head with my hand, which was slightly sore from playing golf. "I'm going to take a shower and cook some burgers. I'll catch up with you later." I won't go into the details of the next 2 weeks, but everything was fine between us. Lisa and I talked several times a week, and it was always a pleasure. Lisa remained as stunning as before, maintaining her figure without a single extra kilogram. She was slender, with beautiful breasts and a curved ass that mesmerized the audience, bouncing and swaying with every step she took. I can't help but playfully pat her buttocks when I pass her in the kitchen or somewhere else, although she scolds me if I do it too openly in public. I playfully remind her that my attraction to her is undeniable, and as her husband, I have the honor to admire and even playfully slap her beautiful ass. She doesn't seem to mind, and I suspect she even likes the attention. On Friday, we all met at a rented cottage on the beach. Some arrived early to soak up the sun, and others joined us late at night, after dinner. In general, we had a great evening around the campfire, relaxing, drinking beer, and remembering our student years. We talked about what we would do after graduation, and only one couple mentioned that they had recently had a baby. The rest agreed that they were not going to have children for several more years. Interestingly, Lisa and I recently discussed the idea of expanding our family ourselves. After thinking about it, we realized that we were ready to take the next step, and she stopped using contraceptives. Being the longest-lived married couple among our friends, we were confident in our decision. The following Saturday, we devoted a day to the leisure planned by our wives, and then went to the beach. We spent the day basking in the sun, swimming, and enjoying lots of beer. I was quite surprised to find that on the first day of our stay on vacation, all the girls were in modest swimsuits. Since I overheard my wife and Angie talking on the phone 2 weeks ago about planning a weekend, I already imagined how they would show off in very revealing bikinis. I admit, the thought of seeing our ladies like this excited me. They are all undoubtedly beautiful girls. But the idea of other guys staring at my wife in such a revealing outfit didn't suit me. Yes, I understand that this is a double standard, but that's exactly how I feel. After a quiet evening with a grill, drinks, jokes, and deep conversations, we all went to bed by 10 o'clock. However, we, experienced married people, are used to going to bed early, no longer living stormy student days. There were sounds of passion in our cottage that Saturday night, but most of us were too busy making love to our spouses before falling asleep. A whole day spent in the sun and a generous portion of alcohol can exhaust your strength and ensure a restful sleep. Sunday started the same way as Saturday, until we arrived at the beach in the afternoon. The girls sent us to the beach to spread blankets, put coolers with drinks, and set up umbrellas. They mentioned that they would be joining us soon, nothing unusual. After quickly changing into swimming trunks, we were ready to leave. The only strange thing was that I couldn't find my swimming trunks. After searching the room, I asked Lisa if she had seen them, since I thought I had left them by the bathtub the day before. She said she had no idea where they were, but fortunately she had spare ones. Grateful, I quickly pulled them on and hurried after the guys. Girls always gather longer, even if it's about a beach vacation. They need to take care to apply sunscreen, tidy up their hair, and find their lost sunglasses. They are even thinking about matching elegant shoes with a swimsuit. You have to understand what I mean. While the men were setting up a place for an afternoon on the beach, the wives were preparing to join them. When the wives finally appeared, we husbands were speechless. 6 stunning girls appeared in front of them, gracefully moving like models at a fashion show in their 2 revealing swimsuits. Their almost naked bodies sparkled in the sun, making the men tremble. The men were confused by the sight of such alluring female flesh. If we were on a public beach, then this kind of our wives would certainly cause a stir. Angie was the first to break the silence. "The girls and I decided that you should get special pleasure for being such wonderful husbands. Besides, we have a big cottage, she said in a seductive tone. Sensually running her hands over her body, she offered, "These buns need a great tan, so we decided to put on a little show for you this afternoon. Does anyone mind?" She raised her eyebrows and smiled with a sense of self-confidence, looking around at all of us. The men in the group seemed stunned by her presence. Despite all our efforts, we tried not to look at other people's wives, trying to behave as usual. I couldn't help but notice that one of the girls had particularly prominent breasts. They were noticeably larger than Lisa's, and were barely contained by tiny triangular bikinis that did little to hide her large areolas peeking out from under them. The top she was wearing with thin straps and ties provided no support, causing her bust to bounce and sway with every movement. When she bent over, he sagged, almost tearing the straps holding him. Her curves demanded attention, and it was hard to look away from them. After lunch, the girls agreed to play paddleball together. Have you ever played a game in which a rubber ball is thrown back and forth using rackets? The goal is to keep the ball in the air as long as possible without letting it hit the ground. While we were concentrating on hitting the ball, our attention was attracted by the curves of the girls, who bounced, swayed, and from time to time exposed themselves from under small clothes. Often our companions had to pause to adjust the tops that held back their breasts, or adjust the thong that slipped out between the buttocks. It was too much for me. Worried, I looked at the other guys and found that they were also trying to restrain their natural urges. But I was already halfway to uncontrollable arousal. Before I could feel any more awkward, I got up and walked resolutely towards the water as if nothing had happened. After wading waist-deep into the water, I turned around to watch the beach scene. But as soon as I turned around, I was surprised to see that all activity on the beach had stopped, and the eyes of all the girls were glued to me. Each of them had a wide grin on their face. "What are you all staring at?" I asked in disbelief, looking from one to the other. Instead of a direct answer, Lisa asked her own question. "Why are you alone in the water?" I just said I wanted to cool off and asked her why she was so interested. "It's because you're feeling a little horny, isn't it? You didn't want everyone to notice," Lisa said with a smile that was audible to everyone around her. The group either nodded understandingly, especially the male part, or grinned broadly, including the girls. One of them even lifted his chin and moved closer, eagerly watching the situation unfold. My cheeks turned red with embarrassment, and a wave of confusion washed over me. I felt the stares on me as I awkwardly adjusted my swimming trunks, trying to hide my excitement as I walked to the water. "No, not at all," I denied, trying to save face. On pure instinct, I reached into the water to cover my motionless, slightly agitated body parts. While I was waiting for the performance, I was in for a shock. My swimming trunks are gone. I looked down and saw that one part of my underpants was floating in the water, and the other was still on my leg. It suddenly dawned on me that Lisa had bought me the so-called disappearing swim trunks. It became clear that Lisa had discussed it with Angie on the phone, and she hinted that it would be a lot of fun. Suddenly, everything fell into place. It seemed that either my wife was planning a prank or her friends convinced her to do it, turning me into an unsuspecting victim who would end up in the missing swimming trunks. At that moment, my mind was full of shock and confusion, which made the world around me seem to fade, and all sounds disappeared. Instead of enjoying the warm sun, I felt icy needles pricking my back. The deafening pounding of his own heart was in his ears. Looking towards the shore, I saw that the girls were laughing silently, pointing their fingers in my direction. A few guys joined in the laughter, and the rest didn't seem to understand what kind of situation was unfolding. Everything seemed to be happening in slow motion, but my mind was racing at lightning speed. I found myself among strangers again, surrounded by judgmental stares, experiencing a childhood nightmare in adulthood. The long pent-up emotions of panic, shame, and humiliation burst out, crashing down on me like a powerful wave. Lisa, to whom I believed that she would support me in a difficult moment, to whom I told about my childhood trauma inflicted by a mother who should have loved and respected me, betrayed me. She organized a humiliating situation, as a result of which I was exposed to the public and ridiculed, laughing with others at my expense. Shame and awkwardness weighed on me, evoking memories of the past that destroyed my self-esteem. At that moment, I realized that I would never be able to forgive Lisa for her cruel actions, just as I did not forgive my mother for the scars she left in my soul. No amount of her words will be able to repair the damage done. Standing in the water, I decided to face this problem face to face in order to finally let go of the offense and move on. I decided it was time to stop prolonging my embarrassment and shame. Standing naked in the water only increased my humiliation. Realizing this, I quickly pulled off the remains of my swimming trunks, hearing a slight pop as they jumped off my leg. Throwing away the useless piece of cloth, I raised my head, looked straight ahead, and with a confident step began to leave the water, still completely naked. The girls around me started shouting something, but it seemed to me that I was in some kind of detached trance. I reached the shore and continued to move towards the cottage with deliberate, unhurried steps. With each step, it seemed to me that another brick was falling out of the foundation of my marriage. Despite the feeling of heat on my face, I remained focused only on myself. Lisa's laughter stopped when she called after me, "What are you doing?" Ignoring her, I continued walking on. When I reached our bedroom, I put on shorts and light shoes. I took my wallet and car keys and went out the front door. As I drove out of the parking lot, I didn't turn around, not knowing if someone from the group was watching me. I just headed home. "Lisa, everything went exactly according to plan," I chuckled to myself.
I was spinning and bouncing along with the girls in their tight swimsuits, and the guys could hardly contain their delight. Mike was the first to dive into the water to cool off, and the missing swim trunks I bought worked just right. It became clear to us girls how shocked he was when he realized that his swimming trunks were disappearing right in front of his eyes. There was a whole mix of emotions on his face: shock, surprise, shame, and something else that I couldn't identify. As a result, he got up, walked past us, and headed for the cottage. We were all speechless. I couldn't help but feel annoyed when my husband, casually passing by my acquaintances, waved his instrument freely. After all, he was my husband, and only I could see him like this. Despite my annoyance, the girls couldn't help but admire how lucky I was to have such an attractive husband like Mike. At first, I intended to playfully tease Mike before handing him the swim trunks from my beach bag. Then he will calmly come out of the water, as if nothing had happened. We would have a little laugh and continued to relax as a group. It was obvious that the guys liked to look at us girls in revealing swimsuits that barely covered our curves. When the fun had subsided, I said that I should probably go and get Mike. I knew I needed to fix the situation somehow, because Mike seemed to be in a bad mood when he left. Maybe I need to sweeten it up a bit and apologize for the unintended offense. It's okay. He'll come to terms with it over time. As I was approaching the house, a thought occurred to me that made me freeze. Maybe Mike is still haunted by memories of how his mother put him in an awkward position as a child. Perhaps it was this emotion that I saw on his face when he stood in the water looking lost. Perhaps I unknowingly triggered some deep trauma from his past. I began to worry that I had made a grave mistake, knowing how much a difficult childhood still affects him. He never forgave his mother and became estranged from her as a result. It seemed like I was communicating with his mother more than he was, but I pushed these thoughts aside, confident that a few loving gestures and assurances of my affection would relieve the lingering tension. I was sure that a few gentle kisses and sincere words would smooth things over with Mike. As soon as I crossed the threshold, I called Mike loudly, hoping to hear an answer from one of the rooms. But all I heard was silence. I went into our bedroom but found it empty. Puzzled, I kept calling for him, searching every room in the house, but Mike was nowhere to be found. Looking out the window, I noticed that our car was missing from the parking lot and wondered where it could have gone. I couldn't understand why Mike had to leave in such a hurry. It was just a harmless joke, and he must have overreacted. I decided to call him on his cell phone, and, to my surprise, I heard a call from the bedroom. His phone was on the dresser. Disappointed, I wondered how I was going to get through to him now. After thinking about it, I came to the conclusion that he probably needs time to cool down, and he will appear soon. So I left the house and went back to my friends. As soon as I got closer, all eyes turned in my direction, and the girls immediately started asking about Mike's whereabouts. When I reported that he was nowhere to be found and our car was missing from the parking lot, some guys looked worried. My friends assured me that Mike most likely took the joke the wrong way and would be back soon. In the end, everyone forgot about the missing Mike, and we continued to play ball and enjoy a sunny day on the beach.
On the way home, I remembered that I had left my mobile phone at the cottage, but was comforted by the fact that no one would be able to contact me for a while. Thinking back to the shameful prank Lisa pulled on me in front of her college friends, I couldn't help but wonder how she could have thought that everything would work out. Lisa was the only one I trusted, and childhood traumas related to depression, embarrassment, and humiliation surfaced in situations like today. I couldn't get rid of the feeling that it wasn't an accident. It seemed like it was done on purpose, a cruel prank organized by Lisa. But why would she want to embarrass me like that? Did she secretly like to see me humiliated? She should have known how I would react, how hurt and betrayed I would feel. Did she really think that I would just laugh, dismiss her as a harmless joke? I knew that if I did this, it would only become a weapon for future ridicule. A story that Lisa and her friends would tell and laugh at for years to come. The thought of being the butt of their jokes, reliving that moment of shame over and over again, was unbearable. I knew I couldn't face them again, couldn't bear the thought of them mocking and humiliating me. As I reflected on the events leading up to this humiliating incident, it became clear to me that Lisa had most likely planned all this with her friends. They must have conspired, bought the missing swimming trunks, hid my regular ones, and made me the laughingstock of the whole group. I'm absolutely sure that all the girls were excitedly pulling on swimsuits and talking cheerfully, anticipating the approaching enchanting spectacle, and we guys were specially sent to the beach in advance. But Lisa should have realized that her joke would have negative consequences. Did she really care so little about my feelings that she didn't care if her joke hurt me? I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe Lisa was deliberately trying to insult me. But why? What if I had done the same to her? What if I had planned a trip with friends for the weekend, and then, at the most unexpected moment, pulled off her swimsuit, leaving Lisa completely naked in front of everyone while we all laughed at her? The thought made me shudder. Would she just laugh at it and keep joking? I doubt it very much. I think she would feel incredibly awkward and furious. So no, I think my wife has carefully weighed everything and made a conscious decision to go all the way. So what should I do? Should I just brush aside what happened on the beach, forget and move on? I was no longer a naive child. I was an adult. And this time I was able to stand up for myself, and in a way that was justified for me. To preserve my self-respect and avoid public humiliation, I made the decision not to let anyone treat me like a rag. When I returned home, I wasted no time collecting everything I needed for the week ahead: clothes, necessary documents, and a computer. Deciding to preserve my dignity, I left, not intending to meet or talk with Lisa in the near future.
Time passed, evening was approaching, and Mike still hadn't returned, and that made me uneasy. After dark, we started packing up on the beach, knowing that we had to leave the rented cottage within an hour. Having no car, I asked Angie to give me a ride home. Over time, my anxiety only increased. When we said goodbye, the tension was palpable, and I couldn't help but notice the discomfort in the air. Some guys looked confused, avoided eye contact, or left without saying goodbye. Their strange behavior made me wonder if I had made a serious mistake that led to such a sudden change in the behavior of my friends. When I got home, I picked up my things from Angie's car, said goodbye to her, and headed for the dimly lit house. At first, I thought Mike was asleep, but soon realized that he wasn't home either, as his car was missing from the garage, and I couldn't call him because he left his phone. The realization that I was left alone in an empty house made me feel anxious and realize that my prank had failed.
I decided to stay at the nearest hotel near work for a week, feeling depressed and in need of a way to calm down. I took a shower to relax and then settled down in front of the TV, hoping to distract myself. But suddenly I woke up, realizing that it was 4 o'clock in the morning. I got ready for work, as I usually arrived before the rest of the team, at 6 in the morning. Waking up so early, I wasn't surprised.
Mike didn't come home and didn't even bother to call me. I was torn between anxiety about the situation and anger at Mike for his behavior. How could he just leave without saying a word and not even contact me? It was clear that he did not want to discuss the situation since he did not contact me. When I packed up and went to work, Angie called me and asked what happened to Mike the night before and if we had managed to solve anything. I told her that Mike didn't spend the night at home, which made me very upset. Angie then asked me to tell her about the events that would unfold when Mike returned home. She agreed with me, saying that he was overreacting and needed to grow up. When I ended the conversation and casually tossed my cell phone on the seat next to me, I had a disturbing thought. I was overcome with guilt. I was sure that I had provoked Mike's deepest childhood wounds. The realization hit me like a brick blow. I unwittingly repeated the same abusive behaviors as his mother. Despite the passage of time, Mike's resentment of his mother still remained raw and unyielding, stemming from the emotional scars she inflicted on him during his upbringing. It became clear to me why he never forgave her, why he decided to completely erase her from his life. I couldn't ignore the fact that Mike actively avoided any contact with his mother, refusing to confront her or give her a chance to explain herself. Instead, he became distant, immersed in college life and rarely returning home. His mother did not pay attention to the pain and trauma he experienced as a child, and did not understand how her actions affected his mental state. As I thought about this situation, a chilling realization dawned on me. Would Mike treat me the same way? The thought sent goosebumps down my spine, and a feeling of horror and panic arose inside me. What have I done? The fear of repeating the same cycle of resentment and abandonment haunted me, leaving me paralyzed with guilt and regret. I needed to talk to him urgently, somehow explain to him that all this was just a harmless joke, a stupid prank of friends, nothing more. In my eagerness to plan what seemed like a fun time, I completely overlooked Mike's painful past, which he went through.
Visiting work turned out to be a calming and positive moment for me. I enjoyed spending time with my team, and we achieved a lot that Monday. When the working day came to an end and it was time to leave, I looked out the window and saw Lisa standing by my car. I do not know how long she stood there, but she did not seem to notice my presence. Desperate to avoid a confrontation with my wife, I asked a colleague to give me a ride to the hotel. I didn't want to see Lisa.
I waited patiently for Mike, standing by his car and wanting to talk to him. I was determined to apologize for the unfortunate prank and hoped that the relationship between them would get better again. He never left the building where he worked. I waited for him until late in the evening, but in the end, when his car turned out to be the only one in the parking lot, I had no choice but to return home empty-handed. The house was quiet and lonely. Depression and bleak prospects reigned in the soul. The next evening, everything was repeated according to the same scenario. On the third day, instead of waiting for Mike, I decided to write him a letter. In it, I expressed deep regret for my stupid idea, acknowledging how thoughtless and irresponsible it was. I realized too late that it was a terrible idea. I begged him to talk to me, not to shut me out like he did to his mother. Unfortunately, I have not received a reply to this letter.
What comes to a woman's mind when she believes that a heart-to-heart conversation is the solution to a problem? I reassured myself that in the end, everything would be fine and life would recover by itself. But after seeing what Lisa had done, perhaps with the help of her friends, I couldn't help but wonder if it was worth discussing anything at all. She decided to publicly humiliate me, despite the fact that she knew everything about my difficult past. If she finds this behavior acceptable, what will follow? Will she justify herself by having an affair behind my back? The thought that she might tell her friends about such betrayal so that they would humiliate me even more haunted me. If she didn't consider my feelings and didn't respect me, then why should I feel obligated to meet her immediately, even if it meant losing my temper? And if I did decide to sort out the situation, what if my anger flared up to such an extent that I would lash out at her and leave a noticeable bruise on her body? The potential consequences of such actions haunted me. Was there any hope that we could have a civilized conversation and everything would end like in a fairy tale? I realized that all these meaningless conversations and empty words are not for me. It's time for a change. It's been a year since I left my job and started a new life in Colorado. The beauty of this state never ceases to amaze me. It was very easy to lead the new team. Everyone worked well together. I recently started dating a charming brunette and shared with her why I left my wife. When I told her my story, tears welled up in her eyes. She realized the pain I had been through. In response, my girlfriend shared with me a traumatic experience from her past. In college, the sisters staged a humiliating prank on her, leaving her tied naked to a tree in front of the sisters' house. The feeling of deep shame and defenselessness that she experienced at that moment had an indelible effect on her. She made the courageous decision to leave this toxic environment and never looked back. If one of her fellow students approached her in college, she immediately turned away and left. Ironically, before this incident, she often helped her sisters with homework, as she was a very capable and intelligent girl. There were rumors that after this incident, the grades of the other girls dropped so much that some of them had to retake exams for the semester. When I got to know her better, it became clear that we were on the same wavelength. We quickly found a common language, shared stories from our past. We swore an oath never to shame or insult each other, and agreed that if a mistake happened by accident, it would be forgiven. We both found solace in supporting each other.
It's been a year since I made a terrible mistake that ruined my life. I remember once making a stupid and insensitive joke, not understanding how it would affect my marriage. My thoughtless behavior led to the breakup of my relationship with my beloved husband, who disappeared from my life without giving me the opportunity to explain or apologize. Many people asked me if I had tried to talk to him, as if it was an obvious solution. But he never really gave me the opportunity to do that. I realized that as women, we often consider ourselves entitled to express our opinions without thinking about the consequences. My male friend told me bluntly that I had insulted him and he dumped me plain and simple. He also noted that before joking, I should have thought about how he would react to public shaming. I searched for my ex-husband for a long time, contacted his former employer, mother, and even found his old friends. Unfortunately, no one seems to know where he is now or just doesn't want to tell me about it. It pains me to realize that I may never have a chance to correct my mistake and find a way out. After a while, I found myself homeless due to the inability to pay the necessary amounts. Now I live in an apartment with a work colleague. We rent it together. Despite the current situation, my friend Angie constantly advises me to move forward and start the divorce process. She believes that if my husband lacks the maturity and sense of humor to understand and appreciate our joke, then this clarifies a lot about his character, and I should be grateful that he is no longer in my life. But actually, I miss him terribly every day. We had a wonderful relationship filled with love and happiness. I cherished the role of his wife, and together we dreamed of a full-fledged family. I dreamed of having children, his children. Why did I do such a stupid thing? Why didn't I think about how Mike would react to my prank before humiliating him in front of our friends? I really betrayed him deeply and caused him great pain since he left my life without looking back for a second. The other day, I sent copies of the divorce papers to his mother's house. She called me right after that, her voice full of questions and confusion. I told her about the events that led up to this moment, and by the end of our conversation, she burst into tears. Sobbing, she confessed that she had never realized the extent of the emotional pain her actions had caused her son Mike. When our difficult conversation came to an end, she asked what she should do with the papers, because she had not spoken to Mike for more than a year and did not expect to hear from him in the near future. I just asked her to save the papers in case he ever got in touch. As the reason for the divorce, I indicated that my husband had left me, and the court quickly granted my application since enough time had passed since his departure. After the collapse of our marriage, I received only a few $1,000s. I cynically thought, what a fantastic benefit for me. I let go of the only man I've ever loved, just to have the pleasure of watching him disgrace himself. I once had a loving husband, reliability, the company of friends, and the prospect of having children. But now I felt lonely, broken, and depressed.
What luck, I thought sarcastically. Today, the divorce papers from Lisa arrived in the mail, as well as a long letter from my mother. Last month, I sent her a Mother's Day card with my current address in Colorado. Perhaps it was an act of forgiveness that prompted me to turn to her. But today was not the day to read her words. I hid the letter in a drawer in my office, saving it for another time. Now that the divorce was officially finalized, I could finally propose to the new love of my life. This day was filled with joy and excitement. A new beginning loomed on the horizon.